There are moments when the spirit yearns to express itself, yet remains voiceless. We find ourselves suspended in emptiness, questioning why we carry such burdens and why isolation deepens each time we attempt to voice our inner turmoil. This happens because we have grown accustomed to offering fragments of our essence to anyone who extends a hand. We have convinced ourselves that complete openness represents the sole avenue to restoration. However, Al-Ghazali, that penetrating intellect who explored the depths of human consciousness, speaks to us across the ages with a profound truth. Not every emotion dwelling within the heart deserves articulation, and not every listener merits access to the soul's innermost chambers. May divine mercy embrace him, for he understood that a weary heart cannot deceive itself. When you experience that hidden anguish, that internal rebellion declaring, "I refuse to speak any longer," recognize that your spirit is shielding you. It guards you against extravagance, against squandering precious gifts on those who cannot appreciate their worth. We exist in an era that celebrates sharing, making us feel culpable when we retain something for ourselves. The constant refrain of "express your emotions, seek assistance, release what burdens you," contains beauty, yet overlooks a fundamental reality. The soul is not a communal fountain accessible to every wanderer seeking refreshment. Al-Ghazali observed that when the heart maintains its purity, it perceives miracles, but when clouded, it sees only deceptions. Since when have you ceased witnessing miracles? Since when has your heart been encircled by the cacophony of judgments, counsel, and interpretations that bear no resemblance to your experience? Consider this scenario. You sit beside someone you trust, beginning to articulate your anguish, your terror, that hollowness dwelling within your chest. Suddenly, they commence offering remedies you never requested, explanations that fail to reflect your reality, guidance that appears copied from superficial self-improvement literature. You smile, express gratitude, pretend their words hold value, but internally, something withers. Something becomes more remote, more foreign, because you not only exposed your essence, but permitted its distortion, allowed it to be translated into a language foreign to its nature. Al-Ghazali, who endured a profound existential crisis that compelled him to abandon teaching and recognition to seek solitude for years, teaches us that sometimes silence conveys more than speech, and preserving a secret demonstrates greater wisdom than revealing it. What if you simply ceased? What if you granted your exhausted soul the privilege of quietude? What if you discovered that healing does not always arrive from external sources, but emerges from within? From that tranquil space requiring neither words nor justifications. Today, let us embark together on a pilgrimage toward that sanctuary, toward self-honesty, toward the liberation of not sharing, toward honoring the silence of the weary heart. Two forms of silence exist: the silence born of fear and the silence born of wisdom. Fear's silence suffocates you, creating the sensation of imprisonment within a dungeon of unspoken words and suppressed emotions that corrode from within like rust. This silence brings pain and destruction, generating ailments, complexes, and fractures. Wisdom's silence, however, represents a choice, a conscious and sacred decision that protects your soul from contamination. This is the silence Al-Ghazali discovered during his retreat, when he realized that the most profound truths are not grasped through speech, but through the silence that opens the heart's doors completely. May mercy be upon him, for he declared that one who knows himself knows his Creator. But how can you achieve self-knowledge while constantly hearing others' voices echoing in your mind? How can you perceive your soul's whisper when drowning in the noise of interpretations, analyses, and advice falling upon you like corrosive rain? The issue lies not in sharing itself, but in our lost ability to discern. We have begun providing everyone with identical keys, opening the same door to every knocker. We no longer distinguish between those who seek understanding and those who wish to repair, between those who possess hearts spacious enough for your pain and those who carry minds intent on programming your emotions. Envision this scene. You stand before a cabinet containing your most treasured possessions: photographs from childhood, letters from departed loved ones, journals written in moments of vulnerability and strength, fragments of your soul preserved in small containers. Would you open this cabinet to every visitor? Would you grant everyone the right to examine, comment, and suggest how you should organize your existence? Certainly not. Yet we perform precisely this act with our feelings, dreams, fears, and deepest wounds. We place them upon an open table saying, "Please, judge, advise, interpret." The consequence? We lose connection with ourselves. We become like a third-hand device receiving signals from all directions, no longer capable of clearly receiving one voice. Al-Ghazali himself lived this experience. He stood at the summit of his scholarly glory, surrounded by students and admirers, delivering lectures and composing books. Yet his soul was withering. He felt that all this discourse, all this teaching, all this interaction with others was moving him further from the truth he sought. What did he do? He stopped. He abandoned everything. He chose silence. He chose seclusion. He chose to confront himself rather than others' expectations. In that silence, he discovered what years of speaking had not revealed. He found himself. He found God. He found the tranquility that requires no explanation or approval from anyone. This does not suggest that isolation represents the only solution, but rather that we must learn when to speak and when to remain silent, with whom to share and with whom to maintain boundaries, when to seek help and when to trust our inner capacity for healing. Your soul is not a collective project. Your soul is not a puzzle requiring a committee of experts to solve. Your soul is you, and the only one capable of truly understanding it, the only one possessing its authentic keys, is you. This requires courage. The courage to refuse someone who wishes to advise you without invitation. The courage to declare, "I prefer not to discuss this now," without guilt. The courage of sacred silence. Al-Ghazali taught that every vessel spills its contents. When you pour what fills your heart into others' vessels, what do you receive in return? Sometimes love, understanding, and acceptance. Sometimes judgment, criticism, and misinterpretation. The problem is uncertainty about what you will receive. When you exist in a state of weakness, when you are wounded and needy, the last thing you desire is confronting a broken mirror that distorts your soul's reflection. We have grown accustomed to this pattern. We have become used to granting others authority to interpret our feelings. You are exaggerating. It exists only in your imagination. If you possessed greater strength, you would not experience this. The solution is simple. Why complicate matters? These statements appear innocent, sometimes even loving, but they carry one message: your feelings are incorrect, and I understand better than you what you should feel. Herein lies the danger, not in sharing, but in granting others the right to judge your feelings' validity, in allowing them to determine whether your pain is justified, whether your fear is logical or merely illusion, whether your dreams are realistic or childish fantasies. Al-Ghazali, who spent years studying human psychology, warns us of this trap differently. He states, "Beware of making your heart a mirror for people's whims, for if a mirror is frequently breathed upon, it becomes distorted and loses its clarity." How often have you shared a soul's secret only to have it return distorted? How often have you discussed a cherished dream only to hear reasons why it is impossible? How often have you opened your heart to someone and felt they were reorganizing your feelings according to their logic, not your truth? This is what I term emotional pollution, when your genuine feelings mix with others' interpretations, judgments, and opinions until you no longer recognize which voice is truly yours. Like a clear river becoming muddy when mixing with polluted waters. The river remains a river, the water remains water, but clarity is lost and purity is vanished. This is how your soul becomes when exposed to excessive interpretations. It loses its clarity, simplicity, and ability to truthfully communicate its needs. More dangerously, you begin doubting yourself. You start questioning, am I truly feeling this, or am I exaggerating? Is this pain real, or am I imagining it? Are my dreams truly foolish? Am I weak because I cannot overcome this easily? You become more dependent on others' opinions than your intuition. You begin asking everyone about everything and forget to ask yourself. Al-Ghazali reminds us of an important truth. There exists a light within the heart, and this light shines only in silence. When you are silent, when you cease seeking answers in others' mouths, you begin hearing that light's voice, a quiet, wise voice that neither judges nor criticizes you, a voice that understands without explanations, loves unconditionally, accepts you as you are without attempting to fix you. This voice was always present, but it was buried beneath layers of external noise, beneath all the voices you permitted to enter and mingle with your original voice. Now, perhaps it is time to clear this noise. Perhaps it is time to say, thank you to everyone who attempted to help me, but I want to try something different. I want to listen to myself. Al-Ghazali declared that knowledge is light, and light does not enter a heart containing the darkness of self-doubt. But how do we remove this darkness? How do we restore trust to hearts wounded by excessive interpretations? The answer lies in recovery rituals, simple yet powerful practices that return you to yourself step by step. The first practice, the ritual of sacred silence. Begin your day with 10 minutes of not speaking to anyone. Do not open your phone. Do not read news. Do not allow any external sound to enter your space. Simply sit with yourself. Drink your coffee slowly. Observe through the window. Feel your breath entering and leaving. In these 10 minutes, you are not obligated to be anything to anyone. You are simply being. This will feel strange initially. Your mind will attempt to fill silence with task lists, fears, memories of yesterday's conversations. With time, you will discover that within this silence lies the seed of the tranquility you seek. The second practice, the ritual of writing without an audience. Take paper and pen and write everything you feel, uncensored. Write without considering how these words will appear to others, without worrying whether they are logical or correct. Write, as if no one will ever read this, because indeed, no one will. This writing differs from all other writing. It is a conversation with your soul, a dialogue with the part of you that knows the truth, even if it is painful, frightening, or inconsistent with others' expectations. Al-Ghazali himself practiced this type of contemplative writing. In his book, Deliverance from Error, he recounts his inner journey with painful honesty, discussing his doubts, his crisis, the moments he felt he had lost everything. This self-honesty led him to healing. The third practice, the ritual of sacred boundaries. Learn to say, I prefer not to discuss this now, without justification. You need not explain why you do not wish to speak. You need not convince anyone that your feelings are justified. You need no one's approval for your right to silence. This is the most difficult ritual because we are accustomed to being emotionally available to everyone who asks. We are used to feeling guilty if we do not share, selfish if we keep something to ourselves. But boundaries are not selfishness. Boundaries are respect for your soul. They are acknowledgement that you possess a sacred space that no one has the right to enter without permission. The fourth practice, the ritual of distinguishing between the inner voice and external noise. When facing an important decision or feeling confused, ask yourself, what do I feel before thinking about what I should feel? The first, spontaneous answer, before the mind interferes with its interpretations, is often the most honest. This is what Al-Ghazali calls the revealer, that moment when truth is clearly revealed without need for thought or analysis. A moment when you know in your depths what is right for you, even if you cannot explain it to others. These rituals are not rigid rules, but gentle invitations to return to yourself. Some will suit you more than others, and some you will need to modify to fit your life. The important thing is to begin, to give yourself permission to stop, to be silent, to listen to the voice that has always been there, waiting for you to return to it. Because you are not a project needing repair. You are not a puzzle requiring solution. You are a complete soul that simply needs safe space to remember its completeness. Al-Ghazali said, "He who seeks honor from other than God will be humiliated. He who seeks wealth from other than God will become poor. And he who seeks safety from other than God will fear." Today I add, and he who seeks to understand himself from other than himself will go astray. We are at a turning point, a moment where you can choose. Will you continue searching for yourself in others' broken mirrors, or will you return to the only mirror that truly reflects your reality, your heart? Today, right now, in this very moment, decide to stop distributing pieces of your soul to everyone who reaches out. Decide to keep your sacred secret, your wise silence, your right to remain mysterious, even if others do not understand. Your soul is not public property. Your feelings are not a subject for debate. Your dreams do not require committee approval. Your weary heart does not lie. If it silently screams for silence, give it silence. If it requests solitude, provide solitude. If it asks for boundaries, establish boundaries. If it tells you to stop explaining, justifying, sharing everything, then listen to it. Because true healing, the healing that endures, does not come from outside. It comes from that deep place within you, the place that knows truth without words, that loves you unconditionally, that accepts you as you are without attempting to change you. Al-Ghazali, after all those years of searching in books and in others' minds, found what he sought in one place, in his heart, in silence, in solitude, with God and himself. This is what I want you to find too. This stillness that needs no explanation, this peace that requires no one's approval, this quiet strength that comes from knowing you are complete as you are, even with your wounds, fears, and all that you consider flaws. You need not be understood by everyone. You need not explain yourself to everyone who asks. You simply need to return to yourself, to that safe place that neither judges nor criticizes you. What if the wisdom we seek is buried beneath our era's illusions? What if the greatest deception played upon us is the belief that complete transparency is the only path to mental health? We live in an age that worships transparency, telling us to document every moment, share every thought, declare every feeling, be honest, be authentic, hide nothing. Gradually, we believe that concealment is sinful, that suppression is illness, and that silence indicates weakness or fear. Al-Ghazali, who lived in a much simpler time than ours, knew something we have forgotten, that the soul has layers, outer layers that can be shared, and inner layers that must be protected. That there are sacred secrets that lose their power only when revealed, and that there are deep emotions that die when exposed to external light before maturing in internal darkness. Consider a seed. A seed requires darkness to grow. If you expose it to light prematurely, it dies. If you dig around it daily to observe its growth, you damage the seed. The seed needs secrecy, privacy, sacred silence until it becomes strong enough to face the outside world. Similarly, your dreams, deep feelings, personal insights, wounds still bleeding, hopes still fragile, all are seeds requiring internal incubation, a safe space that no one enters until they mature, until they become strong enough to withstand others' judgments. We are in haste. We want to share everything immediately. We want instant validation, quick advice, ready-made solutions. In this haste, we kill many seeds before they grow. I recall the story of the man who went to Al-Ghazali complaining that his prayers were not answered. Al-Ghazali asked him, "Do you tell people what you pray for?" The man said, "Yes, I ask them to pray for me too." Al-Ghazali replied, "There lies the problem. Some prayers lose their power when they leave the heart for the tongue, and they lose their blessing when they spread among people. Keep some of your prayers to yourself, and let them grow in your heart's silence." This profound wisdom extends beyond prayer to all aspects of spiritual life. Some things need to be kept secret to grow. Some feelings need privacy to mature. Some ideas need silence to become clear. This is not fear or weakness. It is wisdom. It is understanding the human soul's nature, its need for sacred spaces, for places that only God and the self enter. In a world that demands you be an open book, remember that the greatest books contain pages that are only read at the right time, and the most beautiful poems are those kept in the heart and not recited on every occasion. Your soul is a sacred book. Not everyone who knows how to read deserves to read it. Al-Ghazali said, "Hearts are vessels, and the best of them are those that are most capacious for good." But what happens when we turn our hearts into public markets, open to everyone without gates or guards? Imagine a map of your heart. In this map, there are different areas. There are public squares where everyone can wander. There are residential areas where close friends are allowed to enter. And there is the private home where you live with yourself. And deep within this home, there is a sacred room that only God enters. The problem is that we have lost these boundaries. Our heart has become a city without walls. Everything is exposed. Every area is accessible to every passerby. The result is chaos, emotional theft, psychological pollution, loss. When someone enters the sacred room in your heart, that space dedicated to your deepest secrets, purest feelings, most important dreams, and starts rearranging them according to their own criteria, an internal catastrophe occurs. You no longer know where to put things, what belongs to you and what belongs to others, which voice is yours and which voice is merely an echo of other voices. Al-Ghazali lived this experience. He was surrounded by students, colleagues, and admirers, all wanting a piece of his wisdom, his time, his soul. Gradually, he felt he had lost himself amidst all this noise, amidst all these expectations, amidst all this need for constant giving. What did he do? He redrew the map of his heart. He set new boundaries. He decided that there were areas in his soul that no one but God would enter, sacred areas forbidden to others, reserved for inner dialogue, for silent prayer, for personal contemplation. On these forbidden areas, he found himself again. He found his true voice. He found the tranquility he had been searching for in the eyes and approval of others. You also need these forbidden areas in your heart, areas where you need not explain yourself to anyone, where you need no one's approval or understanding, areas where you are simply yourself, without masks, roles, or expectations. This does not mean complete isolation or unhealthy introversion. This means wisdom and distribution, knowing when to give and when to keep, with whom to share and with whom to be silent, which part of your heart the world can see, and which part should remain a sacred secret between you and yourself. Consider the greatest saints and sages throughout history. All of them maintained secret spaces, special rituals, moments they did not share with anyone. Not because they were hiding something bad, but because they were protecting something sacred. The sacred, by its very nature, needs protection. It needs respect. It needs a safe space to remain sacred. Your soul is sacred, and not everyone who knocks on the door of your heart deserves to enter every room. The old proverb states that if speech is silver, then silence is gold. Al-Ghazali takes us deeper: silence is worship, and speech is temptation, except that which is for God. In Al-Ghazali's time, silence was a ritual. People had daily practices of seclusion, contemplation, and dialogue with the self. They understood that the soul, like the body, needs periods of rest, moments when it gives nothing to anyone, but rather receives, recharges, and restores its balance. We have lost these rituals. Silence has become frightening, suspicious, a sign of depression or disorder. Not sharing has become a social crime, and lack of interaction a sign of coldness or selfishness. What if the opposite were true? What if silence were the greatest gift you could give your soul? What if not sharing were the most sacred form of self-love? In Sufi tradition, there is a concept called khalwa, which is temporary isolation from the world to draw closer to God and to oneself. It is not an escape from responsibilities, but a deep dive into the soul, to discover truths that do not appear in the noise of daily life. Al-Ghazali spent years in this seclusion. It left him pure, at peace with himself, able to give from a place of fullness, not from a place of lack. When he returned to teaching and writing, his words carried a different weight, a depth that had not been there before. This is what happens when you give your soul the space it needs, when you stop explaining, elaborating, and justifying, and start listening. When you stop looking for answers in the mouths of others and start digging deep within yourself. This requires courage. The courage to face silence without filling the void. The courage to sit with your feelings without immediately interpreting them. The courage to accept that you need not understand everything, or explain everything, or share everything. In silence, you will hear voices you have never heard before. The voice of your intuition, which you have long ignored. The voice of your inner wisdom, which you have always doubted. The voice of your heart telling you what it truly needs, not what others think it needs. You will discover that many of the problems you think need external solutions hold their solutions within. That many of the questions you ask others, you know the answers to in your depths. That much of the pain you seek medicine for in the words of others is healed simply by giving it the right to exist without being explained or justified. Silence is not empty. Silence is full of presence, of awareness, of love that needs no words. The soul that tastes this silence becomes less hungry for others' validation, less in need of their explanations, more confident in its inner wisdom. This is the true meaning of stop sharing your soul. Not to stop loving or giving or connecting, but to learn to give from a place of fullness, not from a place of need. To learn to share what stems from your strength, not what stems from your weakness, fear, or desire to be understood. The noble messenger said, "The believer is a mirror to the believer." Al-Ghazali reminds us of something deeper. It is more befitting for you to be a mirror to yourself before being a mirror to others. When you begin to practice sacred silence, When you stop distributing pieces of your soul to every passerby, a transformation occurs that cannot be described, a quiet, deep transformation that begins within and gradually reflects on all aspects of your life. First, you reclaim your true voice, that voice that disappeared amidst the multitude of external voices, amidst the abundance of advice, interpretations, and opinions. You discover that you have strong intuition, inner wisdom, the ability to make the right decisions without needing to consult a committee of experts on every little thing. Second, you become less affected by the emotional fluctuations of others. When you keep your center of strength within you, when you do not rely on others to tell you whether your feelings are right or wrong, you become like a steadfast mountain amidst a storm. You are affected, but you do not shake. You react, but you do not lose your balance. Third, you become more present in your private moments. Instead of living in anticipation of the next opportunity to share, to complain, to gain validation, you begin to enjoy your own company. You discover that solitude is not frightening, but sacred. It is the space where you meet the most authentic version of yourself. Fourth, you become more selective in your relationships. When you no longer need everyone to listen to you, you begin to distinguish between who deserves your secret and who does not, between who respects your boundaries and who tries to violate them, between who loves you as you are and who loves their idea of you. Fifth, and most importantly, you become more capable of true giving. When you give from a place of fullness, not from a place of lack, when you share from your strength, not from your weakness or fear, you become a source of true inspiration for others. You become like a deep well that never runs dry, not like a shallow pond that quickly evaporates. This transformation does not happen overnight. It is a gradual process, like the healing of a wound, like the growth of a tree, like the formation of a pearl inside an oyster. It requires patience, gentleness with oneself, and faith that this path, though sometimes it may seem solitary, is the right path. Al-Ghazali, who undertook this journey himself, assures us that the result is worth all the effort. He says, "He who knows himself knows his Lord, and he who knows his Lord becomes independent of all else." This independence is not stinginess or introversion, it is freedom. Freedom from the constant need for approval, validation, and understanding from others. Freedom to be completely yourself, comfortable, at peace with all that you are. When you reach this place, you realize that what you considered silence was in fact the greatest form of speech, and what you considered solitude was in fact the deepest form of companionship, the companionship of the soul with itself, the companionship of the heart with its creator, the companionship of man with his unchanging truth, no matter how much the world around him changes. Al-Ghazali said, "The path to God is not traversed by feet, but by hearts." Today, I tell you, the path to yourself is not traversed by words, but by sacred silence. Here, we reach the end of this journey, or rather, the beginning of your real journey, because everything we have said here is nothing but a map, and a map is no substitute for travel. The real journey begins when you close this text and sit with yourself and start listening without judgment, without quick interpretations, without trying to fix or change, just listening as you listen to the sound of rain, or the sound of the sea, or the sound of the wind in the trees. In that listening, you will discover that your soul has been speaking to you all along. It has been whispering the truth to you, guiding you on the path, warning you of dangers, announcing relief, but its voice was buried under all the other voices, stifled by all the interpretations, cut off by all the interruptions. Now that you have learned the art of sacred silence and understood the value of spiritual boundaries, and discovered that not sharing is sometimes the most sacred form of self-love, now you can begin to build a new relationship with yourself, a relationship built on respect, not on depletion, on love, not on need, on wisdom, not on fear. This does not mean you will become isolated, cold, or selfish. On the contrary, you will become more capable of true love, because you will love from a place of strength, not from a place of weakness. You will become more capable of giving, because you will give from abundance, not from lack. You will become more capable of connecting, because you will connect from a place of honesty, not from a place of needing acceptance. When someone asks why you speak less about your feelings, why you no longer share everything as before, you will smile gently and say, "Because I have learned to respect the sanctity of my soul. I have learned that some things are more beautiful when they remain a secret. I have learned that silence is sometimes more truthful than words. If they do not understand, it is acceptable, because you no longer need everyone's understanding, because you have found the only understanding that matters, your understanding of yourself and yourself's understanding of you." Al-Ghazali said in his last days, "I was searching for God in books, but I found him in my heart. I was searching for truth in the sayings of the wise, but I found it in my silence. I was searching for peace in people's approval, but I found it in my contentment with myself." You too will find. You will find in your silence what you did not find in all the words. You will find in your sacred solitude what you did not find in all the crowds. You will find in your respect for the boundaries of your soul what you did not find in all false transparency. But perhaps you recognize that before you can build these sacred boundaries, you must first break free from the patterns that keep you trapped in cycles of oversharing and seeking validation from others. If you find yourself caught in repetitive behaviors, constantly giving pieces of your soul to those who don't deserve them, then you might benefit from understanding how to transform these deeply ingrained patterns. Just as Ibn Khaldun revealed the cyclical nature of civilizations and how they can achieve renaissance through conscious awareness, you too can break free from your personal cycles of self-destruction. In our previous exploration of Ibn Khaldun's wisdom, we discovered how self-awareness and internal transformation can liberate us from the habits that keep us suffering. If you haven't yet watched that journey, I encourage you to experience it, for it provides the foundation upon which today's practice of sacred silence can truly flourish. Your soul is a house, and you are the guardian of this house. Choose wisely whom you invite into this house, which room you open to them, and what secret you share with them. Because some doors must remain closed, and some rooms must remain sacred, and some secrets must remain secret. This is not selfishness, this is love. Love for the self that God entrusted to you. Love for the soul He bestowed upon you. Love for the silence that embraces you when words tire. Welcome home. Welcome to your sacred silence. Welcome to your soul, which no longer needs to be shared with those who do not deserve it.